Hello, welcome back to Out on That Line podcast, and we are going to do another album review for you. And this week, I've got my co-host, as always, Alex. How you doing this week?
Hello, Shirley. I am moisturized in my lane and thriving over here and ready for a night's ribaldry. We just recorded a hot episode on our reaction to the Super Bowl. I unfortunately was not recording, ripped a juicy fart, and I feel 10 feet tall and strong as an ox, which begs the question, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and you must have started out 12 feet tall because I feel like you might have deflated a little bit after that one.
Dude, it was like in the cartoons where like you blow someone up like a balloon and then you pop them and they whiz all around the room. That's what I just did, and I wasn't recording for it.
Oh man! Well, this week, Alex, we are going to talk about an artist. Well, I guess a group that I feel like we've referenced maybe once or twice, but we haven't really talked about in depth whatsoever on this podcast yet. This is, of course, going to be Clipse in the album Let God Sort 'Em Out. So I would have to ask, as always, what was your familiarity with the Clipse before this?
Zero with Malice, formerly known as No Malice. Next to zero with Pusha T. Know that he did some stuff with Kanye. If you know, you know, like that, like the most basic familiarity. And then in terms of like the producer on this album, Pharrell, obviously Happy and you know his great hats and a very very limited exposure to anybody in this situation. Because I've talked about this before, but I think rap and hip hop, more so rap for me, there's just such an intimidating volume of it, and you don't know where to start or where to begin. And it depends on like what production style, what lyrical quality is gonna click with you. It's intimidating. So where do you jump in? And so you kind of wait for the right moment and you hesitate. So it's no aversion to the genre. It's an aversion to the work I would have to put in to have a super working knowledge of all the players and the whole landscape. So I will speak out of my total ignorance to that on this. I will not pretend to be an expert in any way. It really is just going to be gut reactions to this album. I don't have the lore other than like basic stuff I looked up. So I'm a fresh little lamb with shaky legs.
Well, the Clipse, and I probably have barely more experience with the Clipse specifically than you do. I remember the song Grinding was huge back in the day. That was a Pharrell, so the Neptunes were the ones that produced that the first album, and it kind of blew up. Like the clip, Pusha T specifically, Malice is looked at as a great rapper, but I think Pusha T specifically is looked at as one of the best. When it comes to the very aggressive style of rapping that he does, he's looked at as one of the best ones. I think what I probably knew most about him specifically was the Drake beef that he had, where he revealed that Drake had a son secretly with some, I think, a French lady or something. And so that was my familiarity with Pusha T, is that he just went there in his beef, to reveal something like that. It was pretty incredible. But other than that, I was mostly familiar with Pharrell. And I think everybody's familiar with the Snoop Dogg collaborations he did, Happy, a lot of the songs he did on his own, probably a lot of Neptunes produced things that they didn't realize were Neptunes produced things, but a lot of rappers had songs produced by them back then. The Clipse, I think, is most famous and was most directly involved working with Pharrell, though, I think more than any other group specifically. He would do things here and there with other people. I think he was the Clipse producer. So this album was released after quite a pretty long wait, and I think people were kind of questioning about what does the Clipse have left to say? What are they? What is there left to do in this kind of genre? In their lane. And what we found out, there is still quite a bit left for them to be able to do, because this album, to me, I don't normally these days, I'll go back and listen to DMX and some of the stuff that I listen to, but I don't really go and seek out very much new, like kind of that more aggressive style of rap. This album to me like really brought me back to the early 2000s, like when 50 Cent came out with Get Rich or Die Trying, like Eminem had the Marshall Mathers LP and the Eminem Show. Like this gave me that same little kind of tingle that rap music did. Not saying it's like the same style or anything like that, but just that's the feeling I got from this one.
And then over here, with no idea what to expect aesthetically, which I hear the things you're talking about 100%. But for me, it had this weird kind of like religious reverence to it. And I don't mean to be a hippie and be like, it was a religious experience. It's hard to explain, but it had like a religious sound, but like dark religious. Like
Mhm.
it was this like very
Like a funeral.
yeah, funereal. Absolutely. You
Mhm.
don't want to be hippy dippy and be like, "Whoa, it's spiritual," but it was incredibly spiritual in a very, very evocative, dark way. Like from the very, very first of the birds don't sing,
They scream in
they
pain.
scream in pain.
Yeah.
And further on in the album, your lyrics like "You're dying and it's beautiful." Like there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of confusion and sadness, and from what I understand, like coke rap is a subgenre that they were
Yes.
very proficient in.
Yeah.
Subvert a lot of that. They acknowledge that and then like get up to the line and they're like, yeah, if that's what you're expecting, here you go, buddy. Um, so it from a production standpoint, from the way that this sounds, if you're like me and you're like, Pharrell, because I'm happy, and then you get this,
Mhm.
very eye-opening as to what Pharrell does as a producer, very versatile, clearly. And then just the aesthetic and lyrical genius of Clipse. It's not over the top heady. They save the great simile and stuff like that for like very impactful moments. What do I always say about rappers? They're English lit nerds. Bitch, real G's move in silence like lasagna.
Mhm.
Like you pick a time to pull that out and whack someone in the face with it and go, look how funny and clever I am. And it never competes with these like very, very serious moments where it's very plain spoken. And again, from that first song where it's like double family tragedy, losing their mom and then their dad. And I believe Malice was the one who found both of them.
Yeah.
It's heavy, man. It is a fucking
Mhm.
heavy album.
So that was, I think, what always kind of separated the Clipse from groups, someone like 50 Cent or, broadly G Unit. I think that like the Clipse was, I think, more associated with the kind of Eminem style of rap where it's very personal. Like they do talk about their feelings. It's not, there's funny things, they drop punchlines, like they can do that sort of thing as well. But because I think they were very sure of themselves because of how much power they had in, slinging that powder, because they did a lot of that. Like that's really the whole first album they came out that the Neptunes produced. Like that's really what it was about. Is if you want to hear about how many different ways you can sell cocaine, you listen to a Clipse record. Like that's like that's I think that's what we've found from this. Like there's, if you want to find out about what that was actually like, you listen to a Clipse record. And there was other, like 50 Cent did the song like 21 Questions and stuff where it's like he got a little sappy, but he never really talked about his feelings. Eminem talked about his feelings in a very raw, real way. Someone like Immortal Technique talked about his feelings in a very raw, real way. And the Clipse was the same kind of thing. They weren't going to shy away from any of that. And I think because they knew they were as tough or tougher than anybody that might say anything about it, they didn't have a problem saying it. So there's always been sort of like a machismo to their vulnerability. And I think that's always been what draws people back to them and why they can make an album like this and have it be so impactful and win a damn Grammy, this far into their career, and have it sound so fresh this far into their career, and have me not sick of hearing Pharrell this far into their career. Because I can tell you, I'm really no fan of Pharrell. Like, most of the music he's produced outside of the Neptunes, pretty like surface level kind of pop music. It's like, it's fine, but it doesn't move me at all. Like this genuinely excited me.
Yeah, and I think it you know, you reference Immortal Technique, and I think they split the difference between how like brutal and unrelenting all that stuff was, especially Dance with the Devil. Like, with like the goofy cleverness of not rappers, but Bloodhound Gang. You know what I mean? Like they didn't go like totally gaga with it, and they didn't go super duper intense, but it had a real seriousness, and again, that sweet word authenticity. It came from the heart, it came from experience, it came from a very real place, and it came from seemingly a place of growth. Like they talk an awful lot about it, sometimes in a very funny way, sometimes in a very serious way. I love, thank you for the ad, you dumb website. I'm just trying to read you guys some lyrics. um but I love this line on POV with Tyler the Creator.
Oh, that's such a good song.
My fella push keep dirty white moving like mosh pits. In that like one simple line, it's like, okay, you know what dirty white is, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
the marching powder. But also dirty whites, a bunch of white people rolling around in the mud in a mosh pit at a festival. Like those little moments of cleverness, and then like the very like Ernest Hemingway straightforward prosaic way that they talk about, you know, losing their parents or any of the adversity they faced, like as they've like grown and developed in their careers and as men. And it's interesting because it's not soft, but it's not inaccessible either. So as someone who had never listened to Clipse, coming in on this, it was kind of it was way more than I expected, because I remember going through all of the album of the year nominees and trying to figure out, okay, well, what do you think is special about this? And I would never like suggest that friend of the pod Bad Bunny did not deserve his album of the year, but a strong case could be made for Clipse winning it for Let God Sort 'Em Out. Very strong case to be made for it. It's a there you don't skip a single song on this. 45 minutes breezes by. There's great texture, there's great aesthetics, the production is off the wall, great lyrics, great delivery. It again, the elusive concept of the perfect album, but I would say this is a perfect album.
Mm-hmm.
That
There's
being a subjective thing.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that, you know, when you think about perfect album, is you can have an album that is like technically imperfect, but because of the songwriting skill, you know, the movements it makes, you know, things like that, it may become a perfect album for you. You know, like for me, like Coheed's and Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth is to me a perfect album. It is not perfectly played musically, it is not perfectly written lyrically, it just hits that right note. You know, it just like, in spite of itself, it's just like the best kind of art, right? When I think about this kind of record, it's a different kind of perfect. Like every single beat, it plays the way it's supposed to. I feel like every emotion is conveyed the way it's supposed to be. Like this is a technically constructed perfect album. And to me, I think that's something that you have to be intentional about. I think you referencing the sort of spiritual, religious, the kind of funereal vibes that this has. I think keeping that going throughout the whole album, and whether that was like the intention from the very beginning to like do that, or if that's just kind of the way it played out and they figured out keep those themes going because they work. Um, there was enough similarity in how all of the, you know, kind of beats wrapped around each other and came together, but it still had movement throughout the album. So you had these really specific, memorable individual songs, but you remember them alongside all the other songs on the album because they, you know, they work on their own, but they work better with the others. You know, and I think that's a sign of a truly, one, that's how you get to a great album. And then when you think about the production quality, the lyrical quality, the ability for you to find, you know, those clever moments like you're talking about, dirty white, like, you know, like a mosh pit, you know, that like, it's such a funny line, but then you think about, oh, there's a second meaning to it, and that's just one line on this album full of things like that. And then you talk about the Malice verse where he talked about finding his parents, and you get these funny moments, you get these extremely personal moments, and they're just as powerful as the other. Like they hit just the same. I think I don't know if this was something they kind of got this first try or this required a mountain of editing to like get this exactly the way they wanted to be. And like either way, whatever way it happened, when you can come out with an album like this, I'd say you did some damn fine work.
100%. And
Yeah.
again, looking at the Birds Don't Sing, because that obviously is, sink or swim. If your album starts out with a dog, you're screwed.
Yes.
But like really listening to that and listening to like some of the most heartbreaking shit, like dad was proud of us and he tried really hard. So imagine his surprise when he found a fucking crack pipe in the medicine
Mhm.
cabinet. Like that is absolutely heartbreaking. And not to be that guy who's like, well, as someone with addiction in his family, but hey, it's the truth. Like those are the heartbreaking moments when you realize like fuck, so and so relapsed.
Mhm.
Fuck, so and so is in way deeper than we realized. It's these painful moments for the people around you. And then if you're the addict, you just feel like shit. You feel like like you look at that and you're like, and I rewarded all of that love and all that faith in me with a slap in the face. And that's not
Mhm.
me like coming down on addicts. Addiction's a disease, and they got to fight that battle. And they've got
Mhm.
these people in their lives that want to be there for them and want to help and love them unconditionally. And so and that's just one brief aspect in one line on this album. You
Mhm.
can make a meal out of syllables on this thing. And again, it's not like with the word craft of, you know, Dylan's Masters of War, as we like to say, like it's not overly complicated. It's just they convey so much in a line or two, and it just keeps building on itself. And they build stories, but again, not in the way that Immortal Technique builds Dance with the Devil. Like then they went up to the rooftop. It's just this like very organic flow that just builds in emotional intensity, builds as a story, and like all comes to a head, and then you're on to the next one. In this instance of the whole and the sum of its parts being equal, it's a great album, and then every individual song you cannot wait to hear it
Mhm.
again. It was fucking great. I had no idea what to expect going into it, and just hit play and off to the races.
Yeah, this is, if you're gonna try to get somebody into rap music, like this is the kind of album where if you're not gonna like this and appreciate the art form that that this is, I just think you'll never get it, and maybe just it'll never be for you, and that's fine too. But I think if you have not really gotten yourself into rap music, or you found in your life that maybe you didn't like it, unless it was previous Clipse records or songs, I would say give them a chance, because this album, I think you're right, was a strong contender to be album of the year. I think it just did not have the cultural impact necessary that the Bad Bunny one did. And because I can't, I can't really listen to the Bad Bunny record because I don't speak Spanish. Like I can get the vibes, right? I can listen to the Pusha T or the Clipse record. I think because Bad Bunny is such a global superstar, and I think Clipse, even the fact that we're mentioning it, and I've seen it mentioned other places too, that people thought the Clipse should have won that album of the year Grammy. I think just the fact that that's the case is probably more than they expected from this.
Well, and I'll stop short at shoulda, because there again,
Could have,
Bad Bunny, yeah,
yeah,
coulda.
yeah,
Um, Bad Bunny obviously super deserving of the
yeah.
win. Um, but my hope would be that in some small way through this positive review, some other dork like me out there takes a chance on this and listens to it, because it's great to I feel like in 2026 off to a good start, expanding the palette, expanding the horizons. It's something I really wanted this year to be about on the show, because we've always said this isn't about being experts. We're experts in certain things. Like if you want, you and I'll go backwards and forwards, forwards and backwards on Meatloaf. Tanner and I can, rage on and on about the Dead. You and Tanner about Coheed. Like, there are areas of expertise, certainly, but we don't claim to be proficient in all of them. So for me, the fun about this podcast has always been discovery. Oh, I've never listened to Wednesday. That album fucks. I've never listened to Clipse. That album fucks. Oh, Addison Rae was a pretty rough ride. It's the joy in finding one you love, and even in finding a dog. Like, you listen to it and you're figuring out like what your taste profile is, and you're sharing it with people, and you're hoping that they're going to share back. You're mentally crazy if you thought this was a good album, or like, what, I can't believe what you didn't see in Addison Rae. It's just, this is one of those experiences where this isn't your genre, if this isn't your kind of thing, if you've never listened to Clipse, if you don't know what to expect, just dive in, get a big old spoon and dive into the cereal bowl, baby.
Yeah, this was, I think, excellent. And I'm trying to think of if for this score, because we're about to give a score, is this going to be the first one? Is this going to set the standard for you, Alex?
This is in the history of the podcast. In the history of the podcast, since we've implemented this new rating system, this is a 10 out of 10 for me easily.
Okay.
No hyperbole. This is a 10 out of 10. Always chasing the perfect album. It is a subjective thing. We've talked about it, but this just gave me the tingles. This is one I'm going to go back to many, many, many times. And I think it's going to reveal new layers of itself every time. This is an easy 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a few pathways you can take to a 10. You can have a vibes 10. You can have a technical 10. I think this one for me is both kinds of 10.
I think it's both, and you can add like it's an aesthetic 10 on top of it. It's like a very like mature, layered, complex kind of album, without being like weird, over the top, experimental. It's just like you add some well produced strings to it, and it transforms the entire song. Like, you don't have to do that much. You don't have to put a hat on a hat to get results. So this one, on a technical level, on an artistic level, on an aesthetic level, it's 10s across the board. And how appropriate for Olympic season.
We had a few Vermonters get some medals.
Yeah, damn right.
Yep. Well, where can those Vermonters and folks all over the world find more of this podcast, Alex?
I was gonna say, people sleep on Vermont. We're very much a hockey state, or we're very much a soccer state, excuse me. Hockey state too, but very much the soccer pedigree in recent years has exploded. The Vermont Green, the UVM Catamounts men's team last year, tremendous stuff. We've got Olympians. We've got Bernie Sanders. We've got cheddar cheese, and we've got Ben and Jerry's. Do I need to go on? We have the superior maple syrup. I know a lot of people are like, well, Maine maple syrup, get the fuck out of here. New Hampshire maple syrup, you might as well smoke crack. Okay. Yeah. It's Vermont maple syrup, or get the fuck out of my face. We know excellence because it's bred into us. I don't care if you're 7 generations on your mom's side or second on your dad's side, whatever it is. If you're not a goddamn dirty Flatlander and you were born in Vermont, you've got syrup running through your veins, which means you piss excellence. And 2 Vermonters are making a name for themselves in the podcast space at youtube.com/C/out on that line. Folks, we're putting in Olympic level effort for you. Okay. We grind, we fight, and we excel. That's just what we do on the channel. Anything less would not be worth it. We should fling ourselves off the cliff like the little fucked up Spartan baby in 300 who ends up betraying them. That guy survived getting flung off the cliff, and look what he did. He fucked shit up bad. And then I'm pretty sure someone speared him in his head. So, yes, very. He was like a proto sloth from the Goonies. So, I mean, this is the kind of wild insight. You're getting history, you're getting pop culture, you're getting a lot for your dollar value at this channel. Okay, it's not just some stupid arbitrary waste of time to keep the intrusive thoughts out. Okay, Our thoughts are going to intrude and invade your mind, and you're going to love it. So you're going to subscribe to the channel. You're going to click the little bell because that turns notifications on for when we make new shit. And you're going to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Even if you didn't, why don't you give it a thumbs up? Leave the other one alone. Don't worry about that one and what that one does. Just give it a thumbs up and make sure that you leave some kind of reaction in the comments. We treasure that. We treasure hearing from you. And we love to dialogue. Let's open up a dialogue. Let's circle back with our beloved fans at youtube.com/C/out on that line. Vermont forever.
Forever. Till next time.